Well, I'll let you lead the way.
Ron, am I good like back here chilling? I feel like I need to be affirmative. That's why I'm like over here. All right, here we go. Take numero uno for the intro. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Now, today's not our typical vlog, full day of eating or show day. Today's gonna be more of a Q&A with the man, the myth, the legend, the mad scientist, my coach, Adam Atkinson. Now, Adam, I'd like for you to give us a little intro. Tell us a little bit about yourself, more so why you got into fitness, as well as coaching. Have you competed before? And just all the fun stuff that you want to let us know before we get into the Q&A.
Awesome. Lots of stuff to cover there. So I actually got into this in 2002. I was halfway through college, getting ready to return for my junior year. And during my summer job, I started getting sick, like constantly. No idea what was going on. Found out I had mono and couldn't make it to my junior semester. During that time, I had actually gained a decent amount of weight, the freshman 15. So I decided when I lost all that weight because of mono, I never wanted to gain it back again. I went out, started running, because it was the only thing I knew as far as fitness, track and field, pole vaulting were kind of my backgrounds. And I got to my neighbor's house and I said, I absolutely hate this. So I had always seen my dad lift weights. We had weights in the basement. I was very small and felt more comfortable training at home. So by the time 2002 had came around, I had gotten the role of a trainer at a local YMCA that just opened up. They'd seen my transformation. They're like, you just need the credentials behind the body, essentially. And that's kind of where I started. And it slowly fixated into me competing. And I was actually training a lot of powerlifters at the time. And I had actually even trained some competitors ahead of me competing, very small amount. I ended up diving fully in. I like this sport so much. I think for a lot of reasons that people hate it, the subjectivity. Like I said, for your win on Saturday, that suspense never gets old to me.
Yeah.
It's like Christmas every day of the year when you have a close call like that. But it's so much more than that because people are like, it's just a placement, but it's not. It's like every bit of effort you put behind it, every bit of effort we put into your programming. And then sometimes the mind thought of, well, what if we did something just a little bit different that would have made that close call? Like, what could it have been?
Yeah.
Because it really was so close.
Yeah.
So, and I believe I joked and said, usually those do not go my way, but this way it finally did.
Yeah.
So that was always good. I've really grown in this multiple mentorships with some really amazing coaches. Dr. Joe Klemczewski was my original mentor with nutrition. So he taught me macros. He's actually the founder of macros.
Oh, wow.
Taught me how to peak athletes. I really can't thank him enough because a lot of times people don't give you that hands-on experience. And I really got to watch him work with his athletes, get the eye for peaking. It took a lot of my fears away that new coaches probably go through because it's very experimental when you start. And let's be honest, it's still experimental today after years of experience, right? We've had a lot of we'll sees and then we change things. So I don't like to refer to myself as a coach as much as a bodybuilding caddy, because if you're a golfer, you're swinging the club at a different lie every time. And yeah, the hope is that you'll hit the green on shot one and get a hole in one, but we very much know that very rarely happens. So you're always managing and changing things.
To give you guys a little recap of what happened this past weekend, since he mentioned Saturday. Friday, we competed at the first Natural City of Lights here in Las Vegas, and we won our class, and we also won our first ever men's physique overall championship. And then we competed on Saturday, and we won our class as well. This wasn't a natural show. It was the Steve Carr Classic. We won our class and we were very close in the overall. And in just a few days, we're competing in the Ben Weider for our natural pro card. How are you feeling about that, us going in there?
Really excited. One, I'm just really proud of you for a lot of different reasons. We've talked a lot through the journey. At the end of the day, it's always about us and primarily you and your journey, but I think there'd been a lot of noise that maybe you weren't natural and like you literally got polygraphed and drug tested at this show. So if anyone was wondering, he is, and I know your progress has been phenomenal, and it is hard for people to believe that. But at the end of the day, even though we maybe proved some of those thoughts wrong, it's really just about us. So even if we did do an untested show and won the overall there, nothing really changes, you know? And I'm really excited about the Weider because it will be a level playing field. I do think you have one of the best natural physiques in the game right now, and that's really comforting to go to. And I love showing my dynamics as a coach. Of course, I work with drug-free people, and of course, I work with enhanced people. And it's never been something that I've forced on you. And believe me, if this kid ever decides to take drugs, you're gonna notice right away. It's gonna be really fast, and you're gonna be like, okay, so this is the year that he decided to not be Natty anymore.
Yeah, I'm very excited. We got a few more days, and we're going for that natural pro card. We've been working really hard, 2 years of this whole bulk and cut transformation. You know, we lost over 60 pounds, got absolutely shredded, and you know, we're 3 for 3 here in Vegas, and now we're going to Washington, D.C. So now to dive into some of the questions that I got on my social media, we'll dive into the first one. How do you get small, skinny guys to get bigger without getting fat? Still wish to be pretty shredded.
That's a tough one. So depends on the viewer's definition on what fat is. And I will say, since they asked that specific question, they're probably very sensitive to the amount of body fat they have on their body. I actually like to call this the hot pan phenomenon, where there are some people who have a reflex where if they're gaining a little bit of weight, they take their hand off that pan. And obviously we see like really obese people who don't have a reflex at all. They've got great fat gaining pain tolerance, right? Like in a joking manner, you know, some people live in those bodies and they are uncomfortable, but some people are just really heavily wired lean. I know you felt very heavy in your bulk, to be honest. So we actually didn't bulk by staying very, very lean. So you do want to optimize your hormones as much as possible. You obviously want to be eating enough food to grow. But if you're going to play on that side of leanness, you're probably going to leave some gains on the table. Obviously, we went a little bit heavier than most because I knew we could bring you back to this state of leanness. And that's where sometimes having a coach is key. One, to support you with gaining that reflex ability, or maybe suppressing it a little bit in this case, and getting you a little bit more comfortable with the process. And I could tell you that as much as possible, but it won't happen unless you trust me, but I'll also explain and talk about it along the way. You know, you got really nervous a lot of times during it.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary for you. I think we're gonna touch on that more as we go. But
yeah, because I mean, I'm pretty sure the person that might have asked that too maybe is fairly lean and is afraid of losing the abs, and I've been fairly lean my whole life, so seeing my abs go away and gaining body fat and just getting heavier that I've never gotten before, yeah, it's pretty scary. And then even feeling it in my joints, you know, that got pretty scary as well. But I think what the main focus should be is sticking to the goal and the reason why you would bulk, right? Because I knew that we would lose no matter how much weight we gained. I knew we would lose that and get back to a stage physique. But I knew that at the end of the day, the main focus was to build muscle, and what we needed was to continue on week by week, month by month, continue with the calories. So I think focusing on that end goal is important because you can put a stop whenever you want. So it's not like, it's a controlled bulk, right? If you want to pull back and take your hand out of the pan, you can.
Yeah.
But understand that the reason why we're doing this and the reason why we did it was because we wanted to put as much lean muscle as possible as a natural in whatever time frame that we did.
Absolutely. One thing I was really proud of you through that process is the fact that you documented it, because it's amazing when you have a Ferrari and then you move to a Taurus for a bit and you put the bag over your head, meaning like hiding from social media. And I think that's why a lot of your viewers respect you so much, is you showed the entire process and like showed up for everybody. Even with me, you never missed check-ins, no matter, you know, how you felt. You took time to communicate and express it. And, you know, there were times you needed talked off the ledge, but I said, trust me, I won't take you too far.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just trusting the process, right? And then I think that's exactly what we did. And, you know, 7-8 months later after all that, here we are.
Yeah.
Right?
And I almost hate saying trust the process, but it's like trust it, but also ask questions, which you did along the way. Because you should always, it's not you're questioning me. Well, maybe a little bit, because I need to be questioned to gain that trust, you know, and, you know, what we were telling you was real and valid feedback and valid reasons for why we were doing that. That just builds a relationship. It's really boring when people don't communicate, because I don't get to know them as a person. And this is how a coach truly customizes things, is based off of that. And yeah, I think this is just a great communicative relationship, which makes it fun.
For sure. Before we go on to the next question, based off what he was saying, I'd like to just wrap it up with a tip I always like to give people. It's harder to chase 2 rabbits than to chase 1. So if you want to focus on bulking, try to focus on bulking. If you want to focus on cutting, but trying to do both, you're probably going to slow down your process. So just aim for 1. The next question, macros versus meal plan. What do you find to have more success with your athletes?
You know, I will say I favor macros. I like the flexibility. I like the long run of the game. However, I think sometimes people need a meal plan to transition to even dieting in the first place. So being a custom coach, we do a lot of both. I know you've kind of heard some of those things on the Zoom calls that we do, where I'm like, hey, I'm going to get a new meal plan for you. And a lot of times I'll have them experiment with maybe the refeed, the 1 or 2 meals a week with macros. The point's to be higher, so if they mess it up, it's like, well, the point was to eat more, and I can keep their food a little bit lower if we're looking at banking that. But I think there's positives and negatives to both. You know, if I put something on your plan you hate eating, that's no fun. Also, if you're not watching what someone's eating, they could make mistakes or grab some foods that are too good to be true. On the other hand, if you give someone something they're allergic to, a meal plan, or something they don't digest well and they're continually eating it and just white knuckling the process, that's not good either. So I think the key always comes to dynamics and being able to switch from one to another. Also with macros, lack of planning, I think, becomes an issue for a lot of people. If you plan ahead, it makes a big, big difference.
Yeah,
so it's a combination of both.
It could get a little difficult. Counting macros could get a little difficult if you're not planning ahead of time, because you find yourself running around, what am I gonna eat? And then sometimes, you know what, forget it, I'll just end up doing this. But it's impressive how basically when you handle and work with macros, you basically put all the trust into your athletes to count the things and track the things and do the things right to get ready for our show in 8, 10, 4 weeks, you know? Compared to a meal plan, at least they know, hey, I have to have 4 ounces of chicken, 100 grams of rice, you know, whatever the case is, you follow this A to Z.
Yep.
So yeah, that's, you know, to me, I've always wondered, and yes, like you said, there are pros and cons to both, but I think at the end of the day, what's most important is what can you actually stick to, right? What can you actually be consistent with? Because that's what's gonna get us that long-term result. What is your take on PEDs? Is it harder to prep natural athletes versus enhanced athletes?
There's pluses and minuses to both. The thing with gear is always legitimacy. So from a coaching perspective, you really almost want to know where your athletes are getting their gear from. And I coach both. I think it's always great to start natural like you have and do it as long as you can. And the worst thing is when I get people who come to me and they're getting ready for their first show and they've already been taking things. I think they'll always have a correlation that they can never look that good without it. They'll almost credit the drugs too much. And you know, the truth is a lot of cycles, beginner cycles, don't produce that great of gains. And then as you get into more advanced, the health risks are definitely a lot higher. And you know, we're trained to manage those and mitigate risk as much as possible. But there's always that variable of legitimacy. And I think that's hard. I think prepping natural athletes is harder because most of the time the availability currently right now in 2023, there's very few natural NPC cards or shows. When you look into natural federations, you know, I've been saying this for years, there's just too many federations and there needs to be a merge. And I think the NPC is getting ready to take care of that for all of us here pretty soon, and I'm really excited to see more and more options like the show we had this weekend pop up. The fact that they polygraphed it is amazing too, because there's only a few shows that do that. So, but yeah, it is hard to, it's hard to prep both because you're still, whether they're natural or enhanced, you're still going over the same variables. I think sometimes people look at the drugs as a magic way for things to get ready. It's really taking the right combinations and at the right time. And a lot of people forget that. And then you're also managing those things from a coaching perspective, and they may start getting some health things with those things that you're managing as well. You might be looking at blood work a little bit more often.
Yeah.
So if you're doing the right things as a coach, it's sometimes harder.
What are some recommendations for cardio to burn fat and not jeopardize gains?
So as long as you're going into a deficit, you're probably going to sacrifice some gains. And I would say, well, what is that magic number of too much? And I would say anytime that you're doing so much cardio that you're losing at a pace more than 2 pounds a week, that's too much. I would say that's like the set in stone rule. And I think there could be a lot of variance in there. And then you start looking at types of cardio, you know. HIIT can be really, really taxing. If you're training a lot, it might be really hard to recover from that. Steady state's usually a little bit easier to recover from, however, the amounts are getting high.
Yeah.
And this always depends on where you're at in the prep, I think, too. But this sounded like maybe more general fat loss question.
Yeah.
So I would say just try to keep the pace down. You know, when we trained together, though, you were commenting on how strong I was, and I was like, it's because I've got a decent amount of body fat on me right now. I am not getting ready for anything, and, you know, you were super lean. It's always going to, it's not that you lost your gains, you're losing leverages to move that weight.
Yeah, I mean, when I was 226 pounds, I definitely felt like you, where I felt like I could push anything.
Right,
yeah. I mean, you just feel extremely strong.
Yeah.
Then you start getting closer to show day and you start to feel a little bit weaker, which, you know, comes with the process. But yeah, and again, I think it comes back to just like the macros and meal plan and dieting. If you enjoy doing HIIT and that's something you like and it's just a non-negotiable for you, then do it. If you enjoy steady state cardio, because you don't like running and sprinting and doing high intensity interval training, then stick with that. Just know that you may have to spend a little bit more time doing it, but I think the safe thing to say is slow and steady wins the race, right? So not to go too aggressively, because then it becomes harder as you get deeper into your cut. So I think this is a general question, especially for starters and beginners, because there are a lot of categories and divisions in women's and men's bodybuilding. Which one would you suggest for someone to start? Like, how would I know, you know what, I want to do this right now? How do I know what division to get myself in?
It really depends on your body type, but if we're saying beginner, they're probably going to have less muscle. So it would be easy as a general context to say, if you're a female, women's bikini, male, men's physique would be the two least muscular divisions. Arguably, men's physique competitors are pretty muscular when you look at the Olympia level.
Yeah.
I would always look at the Olympia level and realize that that's the maximum amount of development, but also look at some regional shows. Because I think when women look into wellness, they look at regional shows and then they're just really shocked once they actually see what an Olympian looks like. That's a major difference. So, and like even that with women's physique or men's bodybuilding, like if you're looking regional, you might not see anyone super impressive. But once you look at the Olympia, you're gonna hopefully be able to see it. And if not, always ask a coach, or you could even DM me if you're looking for just a general point in the right direction. I've had a few people do that, and
To just ask you?
yeah, and they're maybe DIYers and they end up prepping themselves, and it's cool to see the prep, like pointed them in the right direction.
For sure.
Then usually they hire me after.
Eventually.
They're like, man, I shouldn't have done that on my own, you know?
I might have gotten a little bit leaner with Adam.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you feel like you don't have as much muscle and maybe you have skinny legs, at least like I did and potentially still do, then men's physique is probably the way to go. Going into the next question, and this one's for the females. So how does bodybuilding affect hormone function in a female body?
Absolutely, this is a great one. So when you're looking at female hormonal health, you have adrenal glands and you have the ovaries. So you're going to get a little bit of production from both. So when we diet, we face stress. Primarily what we see in women is progesterone drops. So you're going to see that, which is a precursor to testosterone. So testosterone is going to be lower. And you actually see this in all sports. And that's one thing that I really want to comment on. So you do get to a hormonally depleted state. You might be what's called estrogen dominant, where you have a higher amount of estrogen than progesterone ratio. Some women lose their period. So it's just that much more important for a coach to help you get those things back. So Olympic swimmers, marathon runners, a lot of these women I've worked with experience the same thing with losing their menstrual cycle. Some of those endurance-based sports don't necessarily need an off season like bodybuilding does. They want to keep their times a little bit faster. Granted, I think there could be probably more strength training components going into those. But, they experience the same thing, so I don't want people to think that this is just exclusive to bodybuilding. But I think where it does become a little bit more nuanced that way, we do need that optimal hormonal health for muscle growth. So when we're in the off season, it's really important not just to think reverse dieting alone is going to fix this. You need to really take time to make sure that you are getting your menstrual cycle back and making sure that you're doing lab work and preventive measures to actually see specifically what hormones are off, because sometimes other things do happen and there's specific things you can do to remedy that.
Just to touch upon the reverse dieting aspect, someone did ask that question. What's like a proper way to reverse diet?
Yeah, so reverse diet's going to be simply bringing calories up slowly after a show. You'll also hear the other term recovery diet, which is bring them up very, very quickly. You might even go to maintenance right away. So where you think your weight might stay steady. So it really is important, nice and slow. I might not do more than 150 to 300 calories per move. That's just a general baseline. It could be different.
Is that like a weekly thing or?
Yeah, a weekly thing. So I would say sometimes even higher, sometimes lower, sometimes we move it back. You have to watch digestion and you also have to make sure you're moving the ratios of protein, carbs, and fats well per your body composition goals as well.
And since we touched upon the female body affecting the hormone, the hormonal aspect of that, what about for men and testosterone? Maybe dieting too hard. How does that, or how much do you have to do to really affect testosterone in men?
Yeah, so it really does. I'm trying to think what study it was. I believe Eric Trexler did it, but towards the end of prep, it slashed down quite a bit. I feel bad even misquoting the numbers on it, but I will say men regain that recovery better, faster at lower levels of body fat, which is nice. So we tend to overcome it quicker, but it really does. It can really tank your testosterone levels quite a bit. So obviously that's going to be a point where you're not making any gains. And this is where lab work again comes into play. We want to see where those levels are at. So, and then bumping them back up.
Are there any supplements that you would recommend that are natural supplements that help with testosterone?
Initially, you can do some D-aspartic acid, but over time, it's, I believe, the first 2 to 3 weeks, there's an increase, and then there's nothing really beneficial much after that.
I think when we first started working together, we tapped into boron. Does boron have anything to do with that?
Boron frees testosterone, so if it's bound up and not necessarily usable, you can free it just a little bit with that. It's also great for bone health. So I use it for females and males, and you've probably heard me talk about that one a lot.
Yeah. So if someone were to see your page, it looks like you specialize in women, right?
Yeah.
It looks like you are the bikini, the women, the go-to person if I was a female and was looking for a coach. So it doesn't look like you have many male competitors. So you want to say anything on that, or maybe, is there a reason why you focus more on women, or is it just that it just happened that way? Or
yeah, the inquiries don't come from the men as often, and sometimes I wonder if it's because I'm not like huge, right?
Maybe, because I do feel like people look for that.
I do think men tend to look for that more, right? So there's potentially that. I'm also compassionate, and maybe some men need to have someone a little bit harder on them. But in a way, I am kind of hard on people because, it's just like my expectation that they do it.
I think your silent treatment is like a bully at times.
Right? Yeah. So I do expect people to do it because I don't want them to waste their money. But all the men we have done very, very well. And it's funny, my success rate with men is really amazing.
Yep.
So if there's any men watching that want to try something maybe that they didn't know they were looking for, it's definitely available here. So having you and Mike together was great,
Yeah.
Mike's stuff wasn't a leanness issue. It's just a matter of getting some more size on his back. But that kid's going to be really complete with some more lats, What's scary about him, he looks so wide from the front, right? Because he's got those delts. And then I think his back really isn't horrible, but I think his front is just so good that when he turns to the back, you do expect to see more,
It's crazy how sometimes when I see people do their front poses, you see their lats pop out so much and you're like, man, I can't wait till he turns around. Mm-hmm. But then when he turns around, it's like the back doesn't look like how it would look like from the front, or it's not what I expected to see. It's impressive how sometimes that happens on some physiques.
Yeah.
And this one's kind of like a final question. I would say a personal one. As a coach, what are some check marks you're looking to achieve? Something that maybe is one of your big goals as a coach?
Yeah. I had Olympia qualification for the first time last year, and then this year I should say, an Arnold invite. That was, those were two things I wanted to check off my list. However, I will say I want to achieve that again, but in a way, the quality of people that I want to achieve it with is most important to me. The relationships, cry together, hug each other, I want that, you know.
It's coming.
And I
feel
know
it.
we'll have that. And, you know, I don't think it's the achievements for me, it's the connections. And I've had thousands of athletes over the years, and you've seen me evolve as a coach. I do a daily Zoom call now. I literally know all of my athletes that choose to show up to that so much better. Some of them are just gen pop, and I love it when they pop in because they're curious. Like, they'll talk to me about your guys' shows, like, and they feel so included by being a part of the connection with the team. So for me, the benchmark is just really connection. I mean, you've been staying at my house for what will be a week. When Thursday comes around, I want more of that. Or people who can't have that experience, I want them to feel like they're getting that experience. And I want to do it at affordable rates like I always have, and just impress people with what they actually can get with what I would say is a very greedy personal training society right now, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a beautiful thing, you know, having me and Ron here and for the second time this year.
Yeah, that's right.
At Adams Resort, you know, and I think it's safe to say, you know, it's more, you're more than just a coach, you know?
Yeah.
And just like you just proved right now, it's not about the numbers, it's not about the potential Olympian, it's not about the pro card. I mean, I think to you, it almost feels like that's the cherry on top. That's the plus, right?
Yeah, but it's so much more amazing when it happens to the right people. Like, seeing you get your first overall was amazing. We've been really close to that every year.
Yeah.
And the competition just gets better every year, but you were able to progress outside of that pack and kind of lead the race. And that's really freaking cool to see, because a lot of people don't realize in the sport, just because you almost got an overall the year before, it doesn't mean you're going to get an overall the next year. Sometimes the pack is fast, and you stay ahead of the pack. And in Vegas, like, that's tough to do, you know?
There's just big guys in Vegas.
There's very big guys out here.
Yeah, I remember when I came to the gyms, I was like, why is everyone so big here?
Yeah.
I think compared to Miami, it's more of like the South Beach look where everyone's just more shredded.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because when I came out here, I've been surrounded by big guys my entire life, and Columbus is a pretty good mecca, but I was just really amazed and said, this is so different from anything I experienced in Columbus, aside from like Arnold Classic weekend, you know?
What brought you from Columbus to Vegas?
So this is a weird story because it really happened on a whim. My wife and I's side hobby, you could say, is renovation on homes. And we had been renovating our last home and doing the same thing we did here. Not as many visitors in Ohio, believe it or not, as Vegas. But anyhow, we were in the kitchen and we got a knock on the door, and it was a realtor. Actually, my seller's realtor. I recognized him. I was like, that's kind of weird for him to show up. And he said, I remember you at signing, and I'm here because you have an offer on your home. And I said, it's not for sale. He's like, I don't think you'll refuse it, but however, I didn't know this place looked like this since I sold it. He's like, I want you to ask them for more money. And honestly, the first offer was good enough, but since he said that, we went up higher. We made a pretty significant profit on our home, and I was just like, I thought that was going to be my forever home. I really did. We put so much heart and soul into it. It was a wreck when we bought it. I was emotionally attached. My wife was not. And, you know, I was between Florida or Vegas, and there's so many shows out here, and they were all like at Alexis Park or close.
Oh, wow.
And when you go to Florida, they're kind of a little more spread out. And I was like, I like Vegas. There's a lot of entertainment here. My wife and I love the shows out here. They're awesome to watch. The performers are great. And we really had a vision for like our athletes, especially once we saw this house and the possibilities with the pool for photo shoots, which you'll be the first I've ever talked to about this like publicly recorded, because we kind of make it a hidden gem just for like our athletes or people that want to rent it when they come here into town. And it's been amazing to be a part of that work with the photographers and see them put their heart and souls into their photos just as much as I do with, you know, my competitors. But anyhow, we got this vision with a house, and I had Sarah immediately take a flight here to make sure we could secure this house, because we had to accept that offer.
Yeah.
So our thing was like, we hope we get here before someone else puts an offer in on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've told you before, I've told you this the minute I walked in that door the first time, congratulations, because this home is like, it almost feels like a resort.
Well, thank you.
Like it literally feels like a resort. And it's cool because, I mean, this weekend, I mean, you see people coming in and out. And you guys are just so open to having everyone coming in because of the community that you guys have built, you know, through the gyms, through Elevation here in Las Vegas, and the photographers and the videographers, you know, the competitors and athletes taking photos here, you know, in the cave and, you know, by the jacuzzi, the pool.
It's still like a shock to me, you know, that's all happening, you know, to have Jen Dory come here post Olympia win and shoot was like, holy cow, this is crazy, you know. And then Mark shaking hands with me and just chatting with me. And
did I see Nick Walker here as well?
Nick Walker was here a few weeks ago. So, yeah,
some really big names here. And
Gilco.
Yeah, I mean, Gilco, shout out to Gilco with his amazing quality of, you know, videography and what he does.
And knowledge, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's taught me so much, and I go, dude, I thought you were just someone behind the camera.
He's so much more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much some of the questions that I gathered from my social media. You know, I'd love to do this again. You and I chat all the time.
Yeah.
So I'd love to get more of your feedback, see if you guys enjoyed what you guys heard today. Adam, where could they find you if anybody wanted to, you know, find you maybe for some coaching, for some advice, or just follow your page in general?
If you go on Instagram and follow See You Later Leaner, that's the best way to get a hold of me. Or you can go to our website and submit an inquiry there.
Which I love, and I've always wanted to ask you, and I don't know why I never did, or maybe I have, but I just still remember. I love the See You Later Leaner. I think it's the most cleverest thing ever, because you just get people shredded, you know?
Right.
So it's like, forget about everything else. Let's just get lean. How did See You Later Leaner just come about?
It was a pun. When my clients left the gym, they would say, see you later, and I would say leaner.
I got that.
And
okay.
yeah. And then one of my bodybuilding teams like were a thing, and I was like so against it. And one of my girls like kind of forced me to make t-shirts. And then because of the t-shirts, it became my team name. My Instagram name at the time was like super blank, just said see you later leaner. I probably had that a couple years before. My client swiped my phone out of my hand and said, what do you want your name to be? I feel like your Instagram name has to almost tie into your team name, but I didn't even know what a team was back then. I'm like, just use something goofy like see you later leaner. So since I say that all the time, and I'd only be posting fitness stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. So thank you, Ashley, for making me get Instagram.
Yeah, and you're still learning every day with the technology and the social media stuff that you and I go back and forth. So
yeah,
you know, you share your knowledge with me, I share my knowledge with you, and we make a great team together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in just a few days, we're going to the Ben Weider for our Natural Pro card. You know, we've worked really hard. I'm very excited. Maybe we get some French fries, maybe we don't, just like we did just a few days ago, which was a first for me to get French fries right before a show day, which was kind of nerve-wracking, you know?
Right.
But yeah, so I hope you guys stay tuned. I hope you guys enjoyed the previous show day video. Stay tuned for the next show day video that we will, of course, be filming. Let us know in the comments if you enjoyed the video, if you guys have any more questions. I'd love to know your feedback. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. And just remember, Job's not finished. We got a few more days, and we're going for that natural pro card. I love you guys. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, my man.
Let's do it. That was amazing. I love it. I love it.
That was good.
Yeah.
We flow well together. I was like,